Hello and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome back to the Toffee Blues podcast. I'm joined once again by Harry. How you doing, mate?
That's a loaded question this week, Al, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't think that this is where we would be at coming into the pod today, and I don't want to get into any of it too much because I know we've got a nice running order to go through, and I'll keep this bit brief. But yeah, I'm doing okay outside of Everton, and that's been a while since life's been that way round. So yeah, looking forward to kind of picking it apart and getting up on some soapboxes with you. How are you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat to be fair. Like I say, we're both kind of smiling, but it feels almost like that meme of
For
like
the cameras.
the meme of like the guy with the mask on his face with like the smiley face, but behind he's like burning inside. Um, and yeah, obviously, we've got two games to talk about, two defeats to talk
Yeah.
about, um, and and yeah, I think the majority of the fan base are feeling very frustrated about both results, or at the very least, the way that both results came about. Which yeah, we'll definitely, I'm sure, absolutely dissect and rip apart. And so yeah, I mean. We'll start chronologically as we always do. I don't actually want to dwell on a Liverpool game too much, to be honest, because we've got so much to talk about,
Mm,
but we could
yeah,
talk about for both games.
for sure.
Um, but they it does almost link together. I think a lot of the points I'll probably go on to make could cover both matches, so it's important that we do talk about both. Obviously, we sat here last week. Very very reasoned, like going into it. I think, saying probably weren't expecting anything from the game. We all know just how far ahead Liverpool are of us, and in a realistic sense. But I think we both would have just been satisfied with us, giving it a go and basically just not rolling over. Um,
Yeah.
and I guess if you look at it on paper, I think, especially that second half performance where we fought back, got a goal back, and made it a much more respectable scoreline, I guess you could say, then you could argue we achieved that. But the more, if you look into the bigger picture of it, and particularly the way we started the game and the way we approached the game, a lot of Evertonians are very frustrated by it, quite
Mhm.
rightly. I feel the same way. I think we probably should have been a bit braver, but I'll hand over to you really. How are you feeling about a few days after now? Reflect.
We've seen I think the broader headline here is that we've seen in the last two games everything that has ever frustrated us about David Moyes. And that's your headline, that's your clickbait, that's the thing that will rally the troops in the comments. But the reality is it's very well documented. He's never won at Anfield as a manager, and the way he approached that first half at Anfield, or particularly that, let's not even glorify it with the first half. It was the first 30 odd minutes. I think Everton after the 30-minute mark turned up. And what was annoying is that at the 30-minute mark we were 2-0 down, and you people will argue, Liverpool fans will argue, well, they got their two goals and they set up shop differently. They didn't need to sort of break a sweat to go and get four, five, six. And I think there is a degree of that is true. I think, Everton were given a bit more freedom to play once Liverpool had got those two goals. But it's frustrating, Everton have played some really good football this season. We've applauded David Moyes for the way that Everton have approached games this season. We've sort of put the Leeds game in the like, let's not talk about it because it was the first game of the season and he didn't really have all of the players that he wanted fully fit. But for the most part, we've played good football, fluid football, counter-attacking football, better football than we've seen over the last few years. And what was so annoying is just this narrative that clubs smaller than Liverpool should go to Liverpool and not play their game. And it's not just Liverpool, by the way, that teams are guilty of doing this against, City as well. Like Arsenal, I think less. I think people will have a go at Arsenal, but like, certainly City and Liverpool teams just abandon philosophy abandon like the way that they're setting up against other teams, and it is so frustrating to watch. And David Moyes fell victim of that, or was guilty of that. You know, he set that team up, one of the most creative Everton sides we've seen in recent memory, with a let's just not get battered, let's make it respectable, like let's just wait and see how we are in the game. And ultimately, it's the first Merseyside derby in a while where we've allowed Liverpool early goals as well, by the way. I think we seem to have sort of clung on for a while and then get frustrated at the end. You know, Salah pops up with something, or whoever hasn't scored for them in ages tends to pop up with something. But yeah, they got an early goal, that they had the lion's share of possession for the first half an hour. And as I say, by the time the key finally turned in the ignition of the Everton engine, we were 2-0 down. But after that, I think that we left that game. I certainly left that game with signs of promise going into the Wolves game, because I just thought we weren't embarrassed. We weren't humiliated. We gave Liverpool a good game. I think they will have left that game feeling rather lucky that they kept all 3 points. We know the refereeing performance was a shambles, an absolute shambles. And for me, I think that there was more reasons to be positive, despite the fact it was a 2-1 defeat against our rivals. The only thing that was annoying was how we set up, how we approached the first half hour, and really just that, like, he didn't give it more of a go. I kind of wonder where the fan base would be at if he did and we somehow got battered 4-0. Like, I just wonder if like he'd have been proven right in kind of setting it up and trying to play our game and just being well scouted and getting battered because they've got the stronger squad. But I really just don't see that having been the case. I just think we saw enough there that at times they were really sort of running scared of Grealish, or really didn't know how to handle that three behind the striker. Yeah, I know I've gone long on this already and we've got plenty more to get into, but I guess my TLDR for those that have skipped this rant is I felt quite positive leaving the Merseyside derby, and I think first half hour aside, that was a very good performance by Everton. I think it sort of contrasts what we'll get into from last night and the cup game, but yeah, just a bit disheartening, because I think if we'd have given it a go from minute one, it might have been a different outcome, even with the referee.
Yeah, yeah, I think that pretty well sums up my thoughts on the thing. The idea that we just needed to be a bit braver, and as you say, in recent years we've seen where we've gone to Anfield, and yeah, we've been defensive first. We've mostly tried to weather the storm, but we've also like offered like more of an option going forward, like hitting them
Mm.
on the counter attack. You look at last season where Beto hits the post after breaking through and has the offside goal as well. And then, as you say, in the second half, and naturally, more fitter players, better players, they eventually are just able to wear us down and make the breakthrough. And as you say, this was a very different game in that Liverpool started strongly, looked to just kind of blow us out of the water, and then, as you say, just kind of sat back on what they had, didn't run themselves into the ground, having just played on Wednesday night. Let's remember,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, we managed to get a goal back, but that was that, and they were able to hold on for the win. So yeah, it definitely came down to how we started the game, I think, and if we had found that balance a bit more of, like, as I say, because we all know that Liverpool like to start games strongly, and a lot of times this season have scored early on, did exactly that against Atletico, and I can understand wanting to avoid that happening, but there was absolutely nothing going forward at all. It was in the
No.
first half hour, it was lumping the ball up to Beto, and hoping he can win something against Van Dijk and Konate, which is it's such a negative tactic that's just never going to come to anything. And we needed to get Grealish and Njai more involved, because they for large parts of that game had the run of the place. And I've seen so many Liverpool fans even say that Njai in particular, they're a little bit of a thing about Grealish, as most fan bases seem to have, but most of them I saw saying Njai was running rings around them at points, and they were saying that if Kirkes hadn't had probably his best game in a Liverpool shirt so far, I think was general consensus, then um Njai could have really caused them a lot more issues than he did, even with his first Everton assist somehow, which
Yeah.
I saw in his thing.
Yeah,
It's
well
quite
done.
quite mad to think that he hadn't got an assist beforehand, but. But yeah, I digress. Um, and so yeah, that as it was all down to the approach. But as you say, it definitely gave us more confidence, I think, in the in the playing staff. Um, and of course we were looking ahead to this week and the way the fixtures were set out, and I do think that even with the defeat, the performance would, as you say, have given us a lot of confidence going into this game against Wolves, who down at the foot of the table, lost every game so far this season. Fans are about as disenfranchised as it's possible to be. There was all the
Yeah.
talk on social media about like the ground basically being empty for the match, and it really should have been a game where we just went there and comfortably got our booked our place in the next round. Um, but regardless, the whole narrative leading up to it was that, right, we would have loved the result of the weekend, but we're still in a very good place in the league. But we all know that there's going to be a ceiling on where we finish in the league, of course. So, but the cups need to be prioritised. It's something that Moyes has been banging on about all summer, and it seems to come down to like a mutual understanding between the fan base and the manager. Um, and I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit here into what I want to talk about a bit. So I'll peel back a little bit, but we definitely didn't get the lineup we were expecting. Is basically what I want to come up to. I think for pretty much all of us. Um, yeah, I think the likes of a lot of people saying they want to see Barry start because he came on for the second half against Liverpool and looked a lot more effective than Beto did. That happened, fair enough. I think most people would have been fine to get a start out of Diblin, giving Jai a rest. Jai's still coming back to fitness. Been a little worries over him since he went on international break with Senegal. So give him a rest, all good. Um, and I guess Travers in goal would have been understandable. Probably having to move
Yeah.
the defence around in the midfield around a bit. Ganna probably needed a rest as well in the midfield. Like Moyes has spoken about him getting on, but I don't think many of us were expecting such a pretty much a second string lineup going to face, admittedly still a Premier League side, no matter how badly they've struggled so far this season. Um, and yeah, we ended up paying the price for it, didn't we?
Yeah. I mean, look, I want to pick up on that point about second string lineup because Travis was expected, right? He has come in with Premier League experience, and I am sure the promise has been that, bar Everton somehow getting to Wembley, he's going to be the goalkeeper, right? I think he's playing Everton's cup games, and he's there if Pickford picks up a knock. Barry and Beto, it's a flip of a coin. We've literally talked about that on every pod we've been on. For me, he kept three of the back four as well. O'Brien, Tarkowski, Keane. Like he didn't have Branthwaite to bring in. Like so there was that as well. Three of the back four. So I don't know if it's second string. Like the problems were, and he was not the worst performer on the pitch, by the way. But Seamus Coleman being asked to play left back when they let Ashley Young go in the summer for me, and you've got two left backs on the bench, by the way, for me was wrong. Despite Coleman has become a bit of a vanity project for Moyes. For me, I think that's a problem I'm noticing. He shouldn't have started against the Premier League opposition. It's fine against Mansfield, not in that game. Timmy Rabunam, for me, he shouldn't be at the club right now. He should be out on loan. I think he's another one the club has kind of failed. It shocks me how many appearances he's had in an Everton shirt for the level he plays at versus the level Everton want to be at as a club. And I think you're right. Dibbling and Alcaraz, I don't think you could have argued with. I think, Dewsbury Hall can drop out of that side and Alcaraz can kind of come into the 10. Dibbling needs to start with pay good money for him. Again, he's just come in at a time where we've got a really good solid three behind the striker. So yeah, I thought he was unlucky to come off when he did as well. He would have probably been one I'd have persevered with for the 90. So I don't know. There were tweaks, but what that worries me, Al, because it wasn't 11 changes. Like, and for me, if we're talking about that lineup and saying, well, by the end of the game, it was pretty much the first team. Like, and actually, okay, we looked better. Surprise, surprise, when Grealish and Njai came on. Like, Dewsbury Hall and Beto. It was I don't know if it had the impact Moyes wanted it to have personally, but like, yeah, for me, that lineup was wrong. It was too dramatic. He should. And then what blew my mind the most here, Al, was that someone, because I covered the game for the Toffee Blues on X last night. What blew my mind the most, I hadn't even picked up on it, is someone turned around and said, "We don't play again till Monday night. It's 6 days away, and he's fielded that 11 against away to a pro. If it had been at home, maybe. I don't know if that has that much of a difference, by the way, but away from home, psychologically, he's made that many changes. And I just thought, yeah. And the problem was the minute everyone saw it, everyone was on his back about it straight away. The nerves kicked in. And I think what led to be very true, obviously you're right, you said we paid the price for it. But what led to be very true, very alarming, I think we kind of knew this but didn't want to admit it, is just Everton with Jack Grealish versus Everton without Jack Grealish is let's just thank the Lord that Jack Grealish is not from the Ivory Coast and going off to AFCON, because like, and Jai going is one thing. I think Dibbling slots in there fine. But wow, oh wow, like Everton without Jack Grealish, it's Sean Dyche's is Everton team basically. Like it's not David Moyes' Everton this season, it's Jack Grealish's Everton, and him being out of that side would just show like, yeah, wow. I mean, we've not even really gone into the game or the result and how naff both of those things were, but the lineup alone was just like criminal, given that he's told us and he's told the owners and he's been very public about what trophies mean to Everton and what he needs to be the one, and all of this good stuff that keeps getting talked about in the media, and then to go and do that just seems so counterproductive to everything he said, like totally against the narrative that he set since coming back. And no player better come out with some rallying cry before West Ham, because my word, like it's inexcusable what's happened there last night. It really is.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you can play devil's advocate with a few of them. I mean, I think in an ideal world, if Merlin Roll was fit, he probably would
Yeah,
have started that game.
for sure.
And I understand that options in the centre of midfield are quite limited at the moment with him out. And the fact that James Garner probably has to fill in at left back if you don't want to chuck Mikalenko in for another start,
Yeah.
having probably rushed him back for Liverpool, if we're being honest, especially given the performance he put in as well. Probably
Mhm.
wasn't ready to start that game, and to throw him in from the start again probably would have been quite risky. Clearly still doesn't trust Asnu to be starting games at left back as well. So again, there are little things you can understand a little bit when you really like step back from it all,
Yeah.
um, but I think you have to balance those things out a little bit then. If you have to play Irabunum in the midfield and Coleman at left back, then I think you have to have like someone like Grealish to lead the team through this, rather than someone like Dwight McNeil who looks completely out of sorts. With all the players in there, you didn't even get a chance to mention him now, I don't think.
No.
But yeah, but McNeil was probably the standout for me in the worst sense, I think, last night. Just looks so out of sorts, and it's crazy to think just how important he's been for us over the last few years, and just how far behind he looks now compared to what we have. And you can take a little bit of a positive from that in that it shows how far this side has come on quickly, but I think this is definitely indicative of how much we lack quality depth still. And obviously we knew that wasn't going to be fixed overnight over the summer. And I do think that we need to be clear what we're complaining about here. I don't think we can sit here and expect Moyes to suddenly come in and now we brought in a few decent players. Oh, we have to win a cup this year. But just a run, I think would have done for most people. Like quarterfinals, semi-finals, whatever you want to say. Just a decent attempt at it, and to go out in the manner we did at the second hurdle, having only beaten a League One side, and then as soon as we come up against someone else even close to our level, we lose is really hard for the fans to take, and as you mentioned at the start, is far too reminiscent of exactly what people held against Moyes in his first reign here, that
Yeah.
he could take us a certain way, but there was always a ceiling for us. Um, and I think it opens up a bigger question about where we go in the future, and and what Moyes' future at the club is here. Because I remember a lot of people saying when it was first mooted that he would be coming back when Dyche first lost his job, that it's fair enough to get us through to the end of this season and maybe even give him the first season at Bramley Moore, but he cannot be the long term option for Everton. It's far too um but just trying to like retread old ground. Um, and the club's in a very different situation to where it was
Mm.
under like when Moyes was first here. We did have a ceiling across the whole club, and in a way that made it a perfect fit for David Moyes. That the expectations from the higher ups was. He was smashing them out the park. That's all we needed. Just anyone who was keeping us afloat before Moyes came in was doing a good enough job. Um, and Moyes was mostly punching above his weight with the money he had available to spend and was good at finding bargains. But we're in a very different situation now, I think.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. For
and
sure.
um, Angus Kinnear like spoke in the week about like the ambitions this club has and all these like top people they've brought in over the summer, and the ambition that is being shown by those up above, and that needs to be across the whole board. And and I absolutely adore David Moyes and will always be grateful for everything he's done for this club. And I'm far from writing off him being here long term,
Yeah.
by the way. But as you say, this is definitely these last two games. It just all feels far too familiar to me from someone who's been through it all before, as most of us have. Um, and yeah, it just opens up a bigger question, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's the 1-2 punch, isn't it? We've lost the Merseyside derby, and there's accusation there that he set us up wrong. We've lost the cup tie, very winnable cup tie, in my opinion. I think Wolves fans would have been shocked that they won yesterday, to be perfectly honest. Like especially how we played there earlier in the season, and that's the other thing, Al, that's annoying. He's been there and done it once this season, and so you can't put it on the psychology of going away. I think for the first time in a long time, Everton have gone into something and underestimated an opponent, and I don't think that's happened for a very long time. I think I want to come back to the Moyes thing in a second, but look, that's twice in 2 seasons now, albeit with two separate managers, that Everton have crashed out of the League Cup to the team bottom of the Premier League, because obviously we went out on pens to Southampton last season. There is a definitely like a psychological thing there with Everton Football Club, and just trying to get anywhere in a cup these days. On the David Moyes thing, what sort of sprung up for me last night after that cup game was we very much dismissed how easily we crashed out of the FA Cup under David Moyes. You know, we were very positive on this pod of David Moyes' kind of homecoming to Everton. And okay, the Villa loss happened, but the league form was solid. We were very rarely talking about defeats or poor performances. The one exception to that was the FA Cup game where we absolutely just bottled it. And at the time, the justification is got to focus on the league, gang. Like we're not an Everton Football Club that can talk about Wembley when we've got a threadbare squad, absolutely shattered confidence, and trying to stay up in the Premier League last season at Goodison Park, and it was written off very quickly. It's a very different scenario this season. He's talked a lot about progression. The fans have bought into that. We want progression. We feel we are owed progression. And we've seen that off the pitch with the stadium. We've seen it with the recruitment. And now to kind of fall at the first half test, because Mansfield wasn't like, to fall at the first half test against Wolves, to go out in consecutive seasons to the team bottom of the Premier League. It's just I mean, embarrassing is the word to use it. And I'm certainly with you. I'm not somebody who's here talking about get rid of David Moyes. West Ham Football Club is the ultimate commercial for be careful what you wish for, get rid of David Moyes. They're still trying to replace him. There will be Evertonians that argue that we spent 11 years trying to replace him, and with varying degrees of sort of short-term success. I do think though what you've got in TFG, they showed it at Roma, like he won't be given, no matter how much goodwill is in the bank with Evertonians, he won't be given long if it really starts to feel like the wheels have come off. I don't think anybody expected Everton Football Club to win a cup this season. It'd been nice to dream that, but I'd rather have us gone out in the quarterfinals to like a Man City than go out to bottom of the league with a whimper, with sort of the wrong squad, with being able to pick fault in our own performance. Again, I don't mind sitting here talking about defeats when we gave it a go. It was the right lineup or the only lineup we had available, but ultimately our like it was just wrong, and the performance on the pitch was so flat. And you're right, I didn't mention McNeil earlier, but I covered the game last night, and I don't think I mentioned McNeil once because I don't think he really touched the ball. I don't think he did anything. And like that's true for a lot of them. And I think the other thing there is like it's just so flat. There's so many players there that should now be looking at competition for place, and none of them looked asked. Like none of them looked bothered. Travis is fine now sitting on the bench until we get like Grimsby in the FA Cup. Like there's, Coleman will sit on the bench now until he has to do some program notes for the next game or whatever. Like I don't know. Like, but there's not a lot of players there that show, do you know what? Like, actually, he's got my place at the moment and I fancy it. Manager's given me a chance here. Very few look like that. Barry, by the way, but we are skirting over this, but that was not a fantastic glowing indictment to what we can expect from Tiano Barry this season. I hope that was a blip because the inundated comparisons to Moyes Keane that came up after that game from our fan base. That is far too soon to pull that trigger, by the way. But my oh my, like very naive, very, very frustrating performance from him. And again, maybe if he had that three behind him, it'd have been a different performance. But one of those three goes away to AFCON. The other one hasn't played the full season in God knows how long. Like we know that they will be interchangeable, and that scared me. That when you've got those three, none of those three there, like just how toothless Everton look. Yeah, rant part two over, Al.
Yeah. I completely agree. We just had absolutely no inspiration going forward. There was nothing to rally around. I think Charlie Alcaraz tried a couple of times, um, but he's someone who's blown so hot and cold for us. I think he's more than capable of being a backup. I said this last night on the video I recorded. I think I'm fine with Alcaraz being a backup. I'm fine with Diblin being a backup. I'm not sure if I'm fine with the likes of McNeil and Iwabunen being backups for this team anymore. Coleman definitely not. As much as I love the
No.
guy, especially out of position, he's absolute. Just yeah, it's suicide almost putting someone like there again. And as I say, you do have to caveat that I don't think this would have been the first choice plan. It probably would have been Garner there and Röhl in there if he was fit. And injuries happen. And again, I'm rehashing our ground. We knew we weren't fixing the whole squad and suddenly becoming a force in every position like someone like Man City are over one
Yeah.
summer. It will come, but as you say, I'd like to think Moyes has a much clearer idea of his squad now and who wants a place in this squad and who isn't that bothered. And if they're not that bothered, then they have to be moved on at some point and they need to be
Oh, for sure.
replaced. So
January out, like I've already got the shopping list there. Like McNeil's gonna have to go, Patterson's gonna have to go. I honestly think he doesn't like either of his striking options, to be honest. And I don't look, we are clearly, if people haven't guessed this yet, not in the best of moods today, despite the smiles when we said hello to each other. He doesn't like either of his striking options. That's why it's so interchangeable. We have to hope that because it's a World Cup year and because we've left some loan slots open, that there might be a striker that needs some game time come January and fancies it for 6 months for their benefit of getting a World Cup spot and for us pushing for kind of top half of the table. I think if that happens also Beto might be on that shopping list to go to. I don't want to start saying turf them all out, but it was very evident there yesterday who, as you kind of alluded to earlier with McNeil, like who has fallen so far behind the starting 11 now that it's too much of a drop off when they're called upon. And yeah, I still am expecting us to pull Dwight McNeil's face off at some point and it be Jack Harrison after last night's performance. Something has happened there, some like face off Nicolas Cage thing has happened with Dwight McNeil. But yeah, look, I think we should still be fairly optimistic. Maybe this is not the pod for doing that. That was a bit of a steep turn, maybe, but there is plenty more to come this season. It's too raw to talk about that right now, but there's still plenty more to come this season, I think, from that squad. And the good thing about being out of a cup is that most of those players won't get game time. So, like, it's all right, and I guess in the long term.
Yeah, yeah, we'll take that positive out of us. Go again in the FA Cup in January, and uh, but uh, but yeah, like, just quickly on that as well. We spoke about the Friedkins wanting to be needing to be ambitious across the whole
Yeah,
board, and that also means that there's no place in this squad for passengers. We've had far too many passengers over the last few years, and if a player's not up to scratch, then we need to be brutal with it, and they need to be moved on. And like I say, I think we definitely saw a few of them on the pitch yesterday. So yeah, we'll quickly talk about West Ham again. It feels like it's not for ages, and of course it isn't. It's basically a whole week away,
yeah.
which obviously, as we said, adds into the fact that probably should have put a stronger squad out last night. But it again, it's and I think we said it last week. It's almost even clearer now that this squad basically picks itself now, right?
Yeah.
Depending on who's fit, it's basically the same side that started at Anfield, I guess. So, the only question I can give you, and the one that again, as you touched on before, that we're already getting sick of asking every single week, but better or Barry, who starts up front?
Um, well, do you know what? As frustrated as I was with Barry yesterday, I don't think Beto. This is the difference, right? At Anfield on Saturday, there was a notable difference between Beto coming off, Barry coming on, and I think we saw the best of Barry in that second half at Anfield, right? Did all of that lovely off the ball stuff that we'd been talking about and praising him for on the pod. I think the difference last night was when Barry came off and Beto came on. Did he do anything? Like and this is again, I'm sorry, like because I'm not trying to like lynch players. There's something about an Everton number nine, isn't there, that unless it's Duncan Ferguson, we want them like hung, drawn, and quartered. But like I don't want ill for Beto. But did he do anything when he come on? Michael Keane was our most creative threat last
Again,
night from goal scoring potential. Jack Grealish on the ball for crosses, but yeah, it was definitely Michael Keane that I looked at the most last night. So. Barry, I think. I think Beto's got I think Moyes is going to eventually have to back somebody for a consistent run in the same way that it appears he has done for pretty much every other position. I think he's going to have to stop flipping the coin, and I hope it lands on Barry. They've invested more money in him. I think he's a long-term project. Beto's got a short shelf life, I think, for me at Everton. So yeah, I'd say Barry on the proviso that we've got that Grealish, Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, Iliman and Jai sat behind him.
yeah, I agree. Like I said, we spoke about it before. Like Beto got to play with all those lads when he came on. Barry didn't get
Yeah.
that luxury at all. He was hooked at half time. So it's I completely agree with you. It was a shameful performance, I think, from Barry. His attitude in particular, which is
Yeah.
I'm sure what made the comparisons that with Moise Kean. But yeah, it's not fair to write him off yet at all, I don't think. So hopefully we see a bit more from him on Monday. I really hope he starts as well. I'm completely with you on that one. Um, so yeah, yeah, definitely a bit more of a downbeat podcast here. We'll round off as we usually do with the lineup quiz, and it's you asking me this week. So what have you got for me?
Do you know, I bloody hate West Ham. Like with an absolute passion out. I can't stand them. As people may have gathered from my accent, I'm from the south, so they're not in my they're not on my Christmas card list. So this was a bit like I'm just trying to give you something where you don't ease through it. I feel like you're very good at these. So I've not gone too obscure, but it's a bit of a random one in the sense of I can't give you a story why I picked it. Other than this is us losing to West Ham, who were 19th in the league at the time, and I felt like it was very apt coming off the back of yesterday. So 21st of April 2007 at Upton Park, West Ham against Everton. West Ham won 1-0. Bobby Zamora scored the goal after 13 minutes. And this is a David Moyes Everton side in, yeah, 2007.
Oof, Christ. I don't think we've had a defeat on this before, have we? Just
But I
I
just
think
felt like
it
it fitted
fits
in quite
in.
nicely
It
out,
fits
to
in
be
very
honest.
well. Yeah, with the tone of this podcast, absolutely. Right, 2007. Okay. Tim Howard in goal.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Oof. You can't. I feel like Baines is always an answer on this, but he wasn't here yet, so he's definitely not in it. I don't like not having me Baines to rely on. Oh God, this is definitely a harder one. I'd be surprised if I get more than half on this, to be honest. I'll say I'll say Les Scott started.
Yeah, Lescott did start 2 for
Okay.
2 so far.
Uh, Yobo next to him.
Yeah, Yobo also started.
Okay. Um, uh, Leon Osment.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't have Baines, then that's your ever
Yeah.
present, isn't it? So yeah, 4 from 4.
Um, I have the feeling that Cahill was injured around this time for a long time, so I don't think Cahill would have been in the side. Um, I'm gonna go because I know he scored a really good goal around this time against United. I'm gonna go for Manny Fernandez.
So Manuel Fernandez was on the bench.
Oh, okay,
So no
okay,
life lost, but yeah,
right.
didn't start.
Oh, that was the Andy Johnson year. I'm gonna say he might have started up front, possibly.
He did, yeah, five for
Okay,
five, or sorry, 5 and a sub so far.
yeah. Oh, I'm jumping all over the place with the formation here. Um, oh, Hibbert or Neville at right back. Hibbert or Neville at right back. Um, I'll go for Tony Hibbert.
He did play, yeah.
Okay. Um, still need the left back. So if it was before Baines, it's either Gary Naismith or Valente. I don't think Pistone was still there. I'm gonna go for Gary Naismith.
No, I can tell you, Gary Naismith was on the
Oh, he
bench,
was on the
so
bench. Okay, good.
yeah,
Phew.
but he didn't start.
I'll say Nuno Valente then.
And I can tell you that Nuno Valente was no, not in the squad and
Ah,
not on the bench. So that's one life lost.
um, Arteta.
Arteta did play, yeah.
Okay, right. So I reckon we might have played two up front. We had the youngsters at that time. Beattie had gone, so it's do that one last. But I'll say Phil Neville played as well, maybe in the
Yeah,
midfield.
Phil Neville did play, so you got 3 more left to get.
Okay. Um, so I still haven't got me left back. I'm not entirely sure what that could be. That might have been Phil Neville. We might have moved him around a bit. I'm not sure. Or it might have been Les Scott, and we've got another defender in there. Um, oh, we're running out of time a little bit here as well. Right, I'll rush it up. Lee Carsley.
Lee Carsley did play, yeah.
Okay.
Well done. 2 left.
I'm hoping that whoever I don't say would have been on the bench. So I'm going to say James Vaughan started up front.
No, and not on the bench either.
Oh no.
So we're in jeopardy now, Al. We're one life left and 2 players left to get.
Okay, so Victor Inichibi.
No,
Ah,
not on the bench and
damn it.
not in the side. So I'll tell you the 2 missing players, Al. James Beattie was still there and he
Oh, he was
started up
still there.
front.
No,
Yeah,
I
he
thought he'd
started
gone.
up front. And your other one that you missed was a defender because this was a bit of a shambles. It was Alan Stubbs
Oh,
was the other player you
I
didn't
was
get.
thinking that. It must have been Les Scott at left back then. Ah,
Yeah, there we
blimey.
go.
Right. So we'll quickly wrap up there. So yeah, I think so. What I got nine there.
You
Did I?
did, yeah.
Ah, okay, I'm still
Yeah,
very pleased with that. To be fair, fair
you
play.
it's a good
So
effort.
yeah, end on a not too bad note after a pretty negative podcast. Hopefully, we'll have a bit more positive to speak about next week. So yeah, please leave a like if you enjoyed. Comment below, give me your thoughts, and subscribe to the Toffee Boost channel for more Everton content. And we will see you in the next video. Up the Toffees.